welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into something quite serious, a critical security vulnerability just found in SAP NetWeaver.
That's right. We're talking CVE 2025-31324.
And the big worry here is, well, it seems attackers can upload malicious files without needing any authorization. That could potentially lead to, a full system compromise.
Absolutely. It's a major concern.
It really is. And this deep dive is brought to you by Stonefly. They're leaders in enterprise storage, backup and disaster recovery, AI storage, and cloud solutions.
Good people to know in this climate.
Definitely. If you're looking for secure, ransomware-proof storage, Stonefly offers air-gapped and immutable options. You can contact them at sales@stonefly.com for a demo.
Worth checking out.
So our mission today is to break down this threat. What is it, really? How dangerous is it? And crucially, what do you need to do about it right now?
Okay, so this all started bubbling up when researchers, specifically from ReliaQuest, noticed some odd activity targeting SAP systems back in April 2025.
Okay, what did they think it was initially?
Their first guess was something called remote file inclusion, or RFI. That's basically where you trick a system into pulling in and running a file from somewhere else, usually somewhere malicious.
Right.
But as they dug deeper, and SAP later confirmed this, it turned out to be an unrestricted file upload vulnerability.
Unrestricted file upload. So, just anyone can upload.
Essentially, yeah. It boils down to missing authorization checks. The system wasn't properly checking who was allowed to upload files to a specific service, the metadata uploader service in SAP NetWeaver Visual Composer.
Wow. And the severity.
Oh, it's top-tier critical. CVSS score is pegged at 9.8 or even a perfect 10. Doesn't get much higher than that.
Okay, so missing checks on who can upload, that's the heart of it.
Yeah.
How are attackers actually, using this in the wild? What's the attack chain look like?
Well, they're zeroing in on a specific web address or endpoint, development server metadata uploader.
Right.
They send these carefully crafted messages, POST requests, to that address, and hidden inside these messages are malicious files.
What kind of files?
Primarily, we're seeing JSP web shells. JSP is Java server pages. Think of them as web pages that can run Java code on the server itself. And the attackers are managing to upload these nasty JSP files right into a specific spot on the server. j2eclusterappsap.com for such and where jservlet jspears root.
Okay, so the file lands there. Then what?
Then the attacker can just trigger it remotely, usually with a simple JT request, like just visiting the URL where that file now lives, and boom, the web shell runs.
And once that web shell is running, what can they actually do? What kind of control does that give them?
It's basically like leaving a backdoor wide open into the SAP system. These web shells let attackers run commands remotely.
Any command.
Pretty much anything the SAP system user can run. They can upload more tools, maybe ransomware, steal data, and importantly, they use it to maintain persistence.
Persistence meaning they can stay in even if the system restarts or something.
Exactly. They can ensure their access survives reboots or cleanup attempts. They dig in.
That is genuinely scary. Are there clues, like specific file names or anything people should look for if they suspect they've been hit?
Yes, absolutely. Security teams have flagged several filings that keep popping up. Things like helper.jsp, cache.jsp, rrx.jsp, disorp.jsp.
Okay.
But, and this is important, attackers know we look for those. So we're also seeing web shells with random-looking file names trying to hide.
Trying to blend in.
Right. And interestingly, some of these web shells actually contain code that seems borrowed from a public project on GitHub for remote code execution. So some attackers might just be grabbing off-the-shelf tools.
So they're planting these interactive backdoors. You mentioned some attacks were using more sophisticated methods too?
Yes, definitely. It's not always just a simple web shell drop. We've seen evidence of things like brute retel being used.
Brute retel.
Yeah.
That's a C2 framework, right? Command and control.
Exactly. It's a pretty advanced, stealthy framework for remotely controlling compromised machines. More sophisticated than your average web shell interaction.
And anything else?
We've also seen the Heaven's Gate technique. That's a tricky way to manipulate system memory to try and hide malicious code from security software, like antivirus or EDR.
Okay, so they're actively trying to evade detection.
Indicates they want to stay hidden, maybe move laterally, steal more data. Suggests a more determined attacker.
This definitely sounds like serious players might be involved. Do we know who's behind this or how widespread it is?
Well, the timeline suggests things started heating up earlier this year. January, February saw what looked like reconnaissance attackers scanning for vulnerable
It's
systems.
just probing.
Yeah, mapping things out. Then, by March, we got reports from actual organizations saying, yes, we've been compromised, we found web shells.
And who might be doing the compromising?
One theory put forward by ReliaQuest is that initial access brokers could be involved.
Ah, the ones who break in and then sell the access.
Precisely. They get the foothold, then sell it on the dark web to others who might deploy ransomware or steal data.
And now? Is it still going on?
Yes. It looks like we're now in a second wave. More opportunistic attackers who've seen the public reports and proof of concept code, they're jumping in, trying to hit any unpatched systems they can find.
Just trying their luck.
Right. And sometimes even trying to hijack web shells left by earlier attackers. We've even seen attempts to install things like the XMRig coin miner on compromised systems.
Classic opportunistic move,
Yeah.
milking the system for crypto.
Exactly.
Given that SAP systems are, they're the lifeblood for so many huge companies and governments,
Yeah.
what's the potential fallout if an attacker gets full control?
The impact is, frankly, massive. Full system compromise means they could potentially steal anything. Sensitive customer data, intellectual property, financial records.
Could they change things, like financial records?
Absolutely. Modify data, disrupt business processes entirely. They could deploy ransomware, locking everything up, or use the SAP system as a launchpad to attack other parts of the internal network.
A foothold to move deeper.
Exactly. And it's important to remember, while this vulnerable component, Visual Composer, is technically optional,
Yeah.
reports suggest it's actually enabled on a lot of SAP Java systems, maybe 50%, maybe even up to 70%. So the attack surface is potentially huge.
Okay, that is alarming.
Yeah.
So for organizations running SAP NetWeaver, what are the absolute must-do steps right now? How do they find out if they're vulnerable or compromised? And how do they, plug this hole?
Top priority. Patch. SAP moved fast and released an out-of-band security patch. It's documented in SAP Security Note 3594142. You need to apply this immediately.
Immediately. What if patching isn't instant? Sometimes it takes time to test and deploy.
Good point. If you absolutely can't patch right away, SAP has provided workarounds. The main ones are to either completely disable the Visual Composer component.
Turn it off entirely.
Yes, if you don't need it. Or at the very least, block network access to that specific vulnerable path. Development server metadata uploader. Use a firewall rule, a web application firewall, something to stop requests from reaching it.
Okay, block the path. And what about finding out if you've already been hit? Before the patch or workaround?
Yeah, that's crucial. You need to do some forensic investigation. SAP specifically advises looking for unexpected files ending in .jsp, .java, or .class.
Where should people look?
There are 3 key directories to check very carefully.
US or SAP SITG to a clusterappsap.com for you, jservlet jSpears root.
USISIDJ to a clusterappsap.com for TEP OJ jSpears jSpears work.
It's just I say to a clusterappsap.com. USSPIR jSpear worksync.
Okay, so scan those directories for unusual Java-related files. Got it.
Finding unknown files there is a major, major red flag.
Are there tools to help with this? Scanning and detection.
Yes, thankfully the security community has stepped up. Onapsis and Mandiant collaborated to release an open-source scanner.
What does it do?
It's a white box scanner, meaning it looks at the system configuration. It helps identify if your system has the vulnerability and also scans for known indicators of compromise, or IOCs.
Okay, that sounds useful. Anyone else?
Pathlock also released a scanner, this one based on Python, and Onapsis Research Labs provided YART rules.
YARR rules. Those are for pattern matching, right? To find malicious code.
Exactly. They help detect access attempts or the presence of these known web shells in your environment. So definitely resources available to help hunt for this.
That's good to hear. Has this gotten attention from, say, government cybersecurity agencies?
It has. CISA, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, added CVE-2025-31324 to their known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, the KEV list.
That's significant, right? What does that mean?
It means it's officially recognized as being actively exploited, and it puts federal agencies on a strict deadline to patch. In this case, they mandated patching by May 20th, 2025.
So high priority for federal systems.
Absolutely, and it reinforces the urgency for everyone. CISA also stresses, like we said, even if you patch now, you must investigate for signs of compromise before the patch was applied.
Right, the patch doesn't clean up an existing infection.
Exactly.
Okay, we mentioned some specific web shell file names earlier, like helper.jsp, cache.jsp. Are there other IOCs, other digital breadcrumbs people should look for?
Yeah, there's a longer list that's been observed. Besides those, keep an eye out for names like forwardsap.jsp, coreSAP.jsp, webhelp.jsp, webhelper.jsp, note.usage.jsp, is1.jsp, 404error.jsp, h.jsp, another hidden one.
Okay.
And then some with those more random-looking patterns like rr141.jsp, rrx1.jsp, rrx1.jsp, rrds1.jsp. The patterns might vary, but look for suspicious JSPs.
Got it. Anything else besides file names?
Yes. File hashes, the unique digital fingerprints of known bad files, are very useful for detection tools. Knowing those specific directories we mentioned is key. And researchers have also identified specific IP addresses that have been involved in these attacks.
Attacker IPs.
Yes, and also a suspicious domain name. dns.telemetrymasterhostname.com has been linked to some activity. So gathering all these IOCs and actively monitoring for them is really critical for detection and response.
Okay, this has been incredibly thorough, a really vital breakdown of this SAP vulnerability. If we were to boil it down, what are the absolute key things our listeners need to take away from this deep dive?
Right. Number one, understand this SAP NetWeaver vulnerability, CVE-2025-31324, is critical. It allows unauthenticated remote code execution. That's bad.
Very bad.
Number two, it is being actively exploited right now. This isn't theoretical.
Okay.
Number three, there is a patch from SAP Security Note 3594142. Apply it ASAP. If you can't, use the workarounds like disabling Visual Composer or blocking the specific path.
Patch or mitigate. Got it.
And finally, investigate. Even if you patch, check your systems now, look for the vulnerable component, hunt for those IOCs we discussed, use the available scanning tools, assume you might have been targeted, and look for evidence.
Excellent summary. Thank you so much for walking us through that. It's really sobering stuff. You know, thinking about how easily this specific flaw can be exploited and just how much valuable data and crucial business processes rely on SAP does make you wonder, doesn't it?
What?
Well, what other really critical enterprise applications might have similar ticking time bombs inside them? Similar, undiscovered vulnerabilities just waiting. It really highlights that need for constant vigilance.
It absolutely does. Proactive security is key.
Indeed. And remember, this deep dive was brought to you by Stonefly, leaders in enterprise storage, backup and disaster recovery, AI storage, and cloud solutions. If you need secure, ransomware-proof storage, think about their air-gapped and immutable solutions. Reach out to Stonefly at sales@stonefly.com to set up a demo.